Useless facts. We all love them, and I love to talk about them. So, for everyone's enjoyment, this video will just be more Risk of Rain 2 useless facts that are sure to rot your brain. There isn't any other reason to pad this intro, as this video is pretty simple. This video is a bit different than the first one, as a lot of the facts will be a bit more lore and logbook focused. Some of these facts were submitted by members of my Discord, but for the most part, I had to scour through the game and the wiki to find them myself. If you enjoy this video, consider subscribing, but other than that, let's just get into it already. Each rarity of item can obviously be differentiated by their colors, but for those of you who rush through the game and just pick up items whenever you see them, you might not have noticed that when an item is sitting on the ground, it has a different effect depending on its rarity. Lunars have an electricity effect beneath them, equipments and uncommons both have the same light spiral effect beneath them, yellow items have a similar effect but it goes a little bit higher above the item, void items have a much more aggressive spiral, commons just have a slight glow, and legendaries have the most extravagant effect beneath them. Finally, lunar equipments have a combination of the lunar item electricity and the equipment's orange effect. The various void items all share the same effect. I almost certainly missed one, but there are 8 items that float behind you when they appear on your character model. They are the Sail Star, Soulbound Catalyst, Resonance Disc, Frost Relic, Sentient Meat Hook, Focused Convergence, Long-Standing Solitude, Trophy Hunter's Tricorn, and the Defense Nucleus. The defensive microbots also show up behind you, but they are more accurately orbiting around you instead. The Bison Steak item used to be called the Fresh Meat, even if it looked the same. On top of all of that, it used to give you a small regeneration increase on every kill. Why they ever changed it to be the awful version of itself it is now is beyond me, but I guess that's just how it is. All of the maps on the path of the Colossus are connected in one way or another to show you that they're all connected. The shrine on Shattered Abodes has the entrance to the Reformed Altar Cave, the feet of the Providence statue are in the Reformed Altar, the Prime Meridian can be seen from the Treeborn Colony, and the Treeborn Colony can be seen from the Prime Meridian. There is likely some sort of connection to the Helminth Hatchery as well, as the portal at the end of the False Sun boss fight does bring you there, but if there is, I couldn't find one, unless Providence's Claymore counts as a connection. No other maps are connected like this to my knowledge. However, I have a personal theory that the Scorched Acres, Siphoned Forest, and the Aphelian Sanctuary are all in the same area, considering they are all in a forest of massive trees, though it's likely there's just multiple forests on the planet. The water on Verdant Falls doesn't really make any sense. Firstly, the waterfalls on the largest flower don't come from anywhere, and just kind of spawn out of nothing. Secondly, some of the groundwater seems to be coming from nowhere, simply just flowing out of the walls. And thirdly, the flow of the water doesn't make any sense in certain areas. On the cave side of the map particularly, the flow of the water just goes towards the cliff despite there being obstacles in the way. This continues on the post-loop variant of Viscous Falls, as the cave on this version of the map is filling up with water, despite not having any particular way to drain it. I feel like it's only a matter of time before it floods. Loader's Grappling Fist and Railgunner's Scope are the only 2 secondary abilities in the game that do not deal any damage on their own. There is nothing else to this fact, I just thought that was interesting. The skin that comes first alphabetically is the Admiral skin for Captain. The skin that comes last alphabetically is Huntress's Woodland skin. The ability that comes first alphabetically is Huntress's Arrow Rain. The ability that comes last alphabetically is not the False Sun's Club of the Forsaken. Most people know that when you're holding a Titanic knurl, rocks will start to rotate around you when you stand still. For whatever reason, after the Seekers of the Storm update was introduced, this effect seems slightly disjointed and misaligned from where it should be, being slightly above and to the right of where you are. On the Treeborn Colony, there are these fruits that you can shoot for a small heal. On the post-loop map variant of Treeborn Colony, Golden Dieback, there are also some hanging fruits that you can break. However, These ones just don't do anything. This next fact is from Warn Guide in the Discord server. I'm sure a lot of you have noticed, but when you are standing near the teleporter, it actually makes noise. This seemingly bit-crushed version of the background music is to supposedly help you find it if you can't see the sparkles. I think it might be because of her passive, but when you hit the ground from any height while playing Loader, she shrugs. I guess this might be some sort of reset for her exoskeleton, or something like that, but I honestly don't know. Maybe she's just like that. In the game files, there are a few unused enemies. The first enemy that many people are aware of is the Assassin. This enemy could go invisible and would ambush you with either a ranged knife attack or a quick melee attack. This enemy was probably removed due to just not fitting the rest of the game's aesthetic. It's a bit too humanoid, and it's jarring to see because of that. Also, while invisibility isn't that powerful, we have Celestine enemies in the game, it could probably be pretty annoying, as there's kind of no warning when it's about to attack. The second enemy is the Clayman, a much more respectable enemy that's similar to the Lemurians. I think this one should have been added, as while the humanoid animation is still an issue, I don't think it's that bad. Lemurians, Clay Templars, and the grandparent family are also humanoid, and it's not a huge issue, but it is something that I think can be done wrong. I don't know why this enemy was removed, but I imagine it was because it didn't really add anything to the game that other enemies already did. Also, for some reason, they can't take damage. And our final cut enemy is the Major Construct. I've heard rumors that this was the original version of the Xi Construct that was reworked because this one is, something. It's interesting, alright. The Major Construct is a stationary enemy that resembles a totem pole. It has the same laser attack that the Xi Construct has, and has its shield around it at all times. The only part of it that you can attack is the pyramid on the top, and after you get it below half health, it does this. Yeah, this was probably cut due to having some issues with the maps, as it's one of the only enemies that can do something like this. I don't really know if I prefer this version to the existing Xi construct. I think I honestly might, though, because at least this guy doesn't stay away forever. Let me know what you think about these guys, and if you think they would fit in the game at all. Despite glowing in its item icon, the Pron accumulator does not glow in its logbook entry. I guess it must be turned off. Additionally, the Pron accumulator is full of references to the game Doom. It is named the BFG in the game files, a reference to the weapon and the song of the same name from Doom. Its shipping address in the logbook entry is a reference to the Masters of Doom book. Its tracking number, or at least the part we can see, is a reference to the year that the first Doom was released, being 1993, and the achievement to unlock Mul-T's saw is called Gotcha, which is named after a level in Doom 2. The Crowbar is also full of references. Firstly, it is a reference to the crowbar Gordon Freeman uses in Half-Life 1 and 2. Its logbook entry takes a jab at the fact that there is no Half-Life 3 saying, "How about a better crowbar? This thing is only 2nd edition. It looks good, but to be honest, it's getting a little old." And secondly, the two characters in dialogue in the entry are named Jesse and James, which is very likely a reference to Team Rocket from the Pokemon series. Or Jesse is a reference to me, despite it not being spelled the same, though I will choose to believe that. It makes sense, but on the Treeborn colony, if you use a free cam cheat to look at the rest of the Providence statue, you'll see that his face is completely blank, and his hat has way less detail. Additionally, while you can see the arena of the Prime Meridian from the Treeborn colony, you cannot see the rest of the map. Normally, the only allies that can earn the effect of the spare drone parts are the drones. However, since they are robots, using Gubo Jr. on Mul-T or Rex will allow them to also gain the effects of spare drone parts. This makes them incredibly overpowered, and it's just awesome. I'm honestly looking into making a video about this because I just find it so cool. Mechanical allies and enemies in general are also just slightly unique in how they interact with the game. Most noticeably, mechanical enemies such as the Solus unit and probes cannot become void types. untouched. If a scavenger picks up a crowdfunder equipment item, it does actually lose money as it fires it. This usually doesn't matter, but theoretically, if you were to let it fire for long enough, it would run out of money, which would affect how much money you earn from killing it. Additionally, the scavenger's ability to throw things called quips at you is a reference to the equipment item of the same name in Risk of Rain. In that game, they only dealt damage, and the added effect of using your on-kill items when they landed is completely unique to Risk of Rain 2. The most popular lore fact people like to throw around is the needlessly complicated life cycle of the parent family of monsters. For those of you who don't know, the child is the oldest end of the life cycle, the grandparent is the middle, and the parents are the youngest, as can be seen with one of them straight chilling in the planula. Why Hopu decided to make this so complicated is beyond me, however it will never not be funny. This next fact is from Clam in the Discord server. According to the Focus Crystal's logbook entry, it is incredibly dense, reaching a whopping 300.14 grams per cubic centimeter, which makes it far denser than the densest known object on Earth, osmium, which only reaches about 22.5 grams per cubic centimeter. This would make the focus crystal insanely heavy, and yet every survivor carries it without issue. In Mul-T's logbook entry, it canonically learns to put up its middle finger. This is shown from the two lines, "Hey pal, you see this thing I'm doing with my hand? Can you do that?" And the robot mimicked the rude gesture. This is hilarious to me, and when we inevitably get emotes for this game, I think that should be included. In the Shattered Abodes logbook entry, you can see its diagram just as you would for any other environment, except for one, which we'll get to later. This one is a bit weird though, as the ropes attached to one of the pillars look very strange, being both taut and stretched off into infinity. These ropes do not appear on the logbook entry of this map's post-loop variant, Disturbed Impact. For whatever reason, the aspect of Malachite, Nukahanav's retort, canonically causes dementia, or at least symptoms of it. This can be rather ominously seen on the survivors' models, as when holding the item, their head twitches back and forth violently. This is honestly kind of terrifying, as picking this item up likely causes the survivors a lot of pain. There haven't been many balance changes for the game or major tweaks to items in general. Sure, things like Ben's raincoat and the Bison stake have changed a lot, but for the most part, every item has been largely the same. The only item to change its rarity so far is the old guillotine. It was originally a common item and has since been changed to an uncommon. For whatever reason, when holding the Trophy Hunter's tricorn on Acred, the spectral weapon that appears behind you is upside down. It is unclear if this is intentional or not, but it may be a silly way to acknowledge that Acred would have no idea how to use a gun. This theory alternatively implies that the other non-human characters such as Rex and Mul-T do know how to use a gun, as theirs is the correct way up. In the last Useless Facts video, we looked at some weird areas in the game that are explorable with the cheat engine. There are a few more that I didn't mention there. The first being Test Scene, a very uninteresting dev room that assumedly is used for, shockingly, testing things. There are, however, this trio of beetles that spawn when you load in. They do not attack you, and they just walk off into infinity. They can be killed, but you should know that if you do that, you're the real monster. The next is the outro cutscene for beating the game via the escape ship. I can't use free cam cheats for this one unfortunately, which is a shame because it is considered a map, so I want to see what it looks like. Another one that I can't move around in is called Satellite Scene, which I cannot, for the life of me, remember where this is from. You can also visit the various backgrounds for alternative game modes, including Prismatic Trials, Eclipse, and Simulacrum. Literally just the loading screen is also a place you can visit, which softlocks your game when you visit it. The logbook is another place you can go, which can barely be seen due to the logbook itself blocking everything. And finally, there's a weird area called AI Test. It's a bit more interesting than the test scene and features a lunar golem doing a funny little shimmy that doesn't attack you because he's just chill like that, and some green and red boxes that put you into first-person perspective when you touch them. Something I didn't know is that there's actually a removed cutscene for defeating the voidling. It features the voidling's eyes flickering out and multiple scenes of various void enemies dying around the planet, ending with a portal appearing somewhere, assumedly in the planetarium. I will show the entire cutscene now. After the Seekers of the Storm update, you can still visit the original version of Commencement, which we showed off in the last Useless Facts video. However, for some reason, it's broken now, with major parts of the bridge missing. The Easter egg islands in A Moment Fractured are not the only instances of eggs hidden around in the environments. There is also a hidden area with these stone eggs hidden in a corner of Wetland Aspect. There is a geyser in here as well to help you get out once you're done looking at these stationary eggs. It's a very interesting museum exhibit. Something interesting about the Siphoned Forest map that you might not have noticed is that the sap on the platforms around the trees is not actually flowing from the trees, but instead into them from the ground. God, this planet is weird. This fact is pretty well known by now, but the blinking light on Siren's Call is actually a Morse code signal. The letters it spells out create the word updog. I wonder what that is. Additionally, in the planetarium version of Siren's Call, this light appears with the same code. Similarly to the False Sun and Mithrix, the Newt in the Bazaar Between Time has lines of dialogue that it was originally going to put into the chat when certain things happened. When you upgraded, he would say these lines. When you bought something, he would say these lines. And when you attacked him, these lines would be put in the chat. I honestly hope they add these back, because they give him a lot more personality than he has now. This next fact is from Yoshisaurus in the Discord server. Most of the items in this game are completely static images, in both their icons and their logbook entries. However, there are 14 items that do have some sort of animation on them in their logbooks. They are the Fuel Cell, Will-o'-the-Wisp, Chronobobble, Chance Doll, Unstable Transmitter, Frost Relic, Brainstalks, Hardlight Afterburner, Mired Urn, Pluripotent Larva, Focused Convergence, Long-Standing Solitude, Forgive Me Please, and the Gnarled Wood Sprite. Additionally, some of the models seem to shake for a second after you move them slightly. This is likely a bug with the textures, but either way, it's very strange. In the planetarium, there are multiple planets around the arena. Apparently, a lot of these are references to other games. The only two I recognize here are the Halo ring from Halo and just straight up Earth. If you know what any of the other ones I look at here are, please let me know about that in the comments below. I hope they add Subnautica 4546b in a future update, because that's my personal favorite space game. Additionally, all of the phases of the Voidling fight and all of the parkour sections are in the same environment, which you can see by using NoClip. The parkour sections are fairly close, but the individual stages are very far away from each other, and can only be consistently found by using the directional marker given to you when the Voidling goes to a new area. Yet another Voidling fact here from QWP18 in the Discord. The original version of the Voidling was way larger, standing above the middle of the arena. Supposedly, after being eliminated, the Voidling would fall through the hole in the middle, but I couldn't find any footage of this. There are multiple references to Saturn in the game, and as you go through them, it seems that the Hopu team might have forgotten that Saturn is a gas giant, and you cannot stand on it. Of course, that obviously can just be a change in the lore of this make-believe game, but, you know. I still think it's silly. Here are all of the references to Saturn that I could find. The Warped Echo has a shipping address to somewhere on Saturn. The Resonance Disk is being shipped to a street on Saturn. The Royal Capacitor was both made in Saturn, but also references a newspaper that's created on Saturn. The Disposable Missile Launcher has the same newspaper. The Bighorn Bison species as a whole was apparently somehow teleported to Petrichor 5 from Saturn. The Supermassive Leech is being sent to a place called Beachfront Saturn, which implies that there are also beaches on Saturn. And finally, the Primordial Cube references the newspaper once again. None of this means anything, I just think it's kind of funny that none of these things would really make sense if the Saturn referenced in-game was the same Saturn we have here, which is a gas giant and again, not something you can stand on. This fact might be a little useful for some characters, and is that the escape shuttle's holdout zone stretches infinitely above and below the ship. This means that you can charge the ship without being anywhere near it. Every stage in Hidden Realm has a little diagram that you can see in the logbook. Some of them are a little bit weird, though. The Bizarre Between Times diagram is completely missing. The Void Locus's diagram is either comically zoomed in or is just really big, making it so that you cannot see the whole thing at once. The Aphelion Sanctuary's diagram has a fog effect around its edge that disappears when you view it from below. The Shattered Abodes has the previously mentioned infinitely stretching ropes, and the Siphoned Forest and Rally Point Delta diagrams are incredibly bright. In the lore of the Alloy Warship Unit, it is implied that it was either saved or corrupted by the Alloy Vultures, resulting it in becoming the protector of the Vulture's eggs, and Siren's Call as a whole. Every single monster shown in the logbook has their own little idle animation. Every single monster, except the Blind Pest and Beetle Queen, that is, who don't move at all. There are also some monsters that don't have logbook entries at all. Those include the Healing Core, the Malachite Urchin, the Newt, and all of the variations of the special Scavenger in a Moment Hole. I did this last time, and it was just so much fun, but for those of you looking for the full audio excerpt of the Alloy Vulture's logbook entry should refer to report C31653D0E 4193DB1D2AC281EE3828280. So yeah, if you want that information, you should go there, obviously, Jesus. This next fact is from Borb43 in the Discord. When playing Railgunner, the on-screen UI is an off-yellow with the words All Systems Nominal and a constantly spinning icon in the top right. After picking up the Visions of Heresy Lunar item, the UI turns red, the text says System Error, Unknown Input Detected, and the icon in the top right stops spinning. Something else that is interesting is that even though the item shows up on the end of your railgun barrel, the physical projectiles from the Visions of Heresy will still come out of your face. With the Seekers of the Storm update, we received 3 new post-loop map variants of some of the existing maps. The Viscous Falls has its very own logbook entry, completely separate from the Verdant Falls. The Disturbed Impact has its very own logbook entry, separate from the Shattered Abodes. But for some reason, the Golden Diebuck has the exact same logbook entry as the Treeborn colony. Since the release of the game mode, the Prismatic Trials has had a disclaimer on it saying, the top 10% of players will be rewarded with literally nothing for now. This begs the question as to why this is even there in the first place. Why tell us that there might be a prize in the future if there isn't one at all? This is a pretty well-known fact by now, but if you're playing as Heretic with all 4 Heresy items and you use a Cleansing Pool, a Shrine of Order, or Egocentrism, a random item will be taken away, and the corresponding ability will be replaced with one called Nevermore, which does nothing except make a squawk sound. Despite doing nothing, you can still fire shurikens if you have Nevermore in your primary ability slot. There are 6 enemies and allies that will not be duplicated when using the Artifact of Swarms. They are the Artifact Reliquary, Kajaro and Ronald, the ally Aurelianite that spawns with the Halcyon Seed, the Squid Polyp Squids, the Ghosts from the Happiest Masks, and the Lemurian devotees that spawn with the Artifact of Devotion. These mostly make sense, however I think that Squid Polyps and Halcyon Seeds in particular should spawn double the allies because the Queen's Gland and Empathy's cores do. Small fun fact about Eclipse, but if you are playing in Eclipse, the artifact portal on Sky Meadows and Helmand Hatchery does not spawn, and you cannot unlock artifacts. You cannot even interact with the code input things at all. There are 6 items that are completely blacklisted from the Simulacrum game mode. They are the spare drone parts, squid polyp, bundle of fireworks, focused convergence, beads of fealty, and the halcyon seed. I get most of these, as the lack of drones, hidden realms, and the teleporter radius make sense. However, I think that the bundle of fireworks and squid polyp should be added, as I can't really think of a reason it shouldn't be. Something funny I found on the wiki is in reference to the items that an enemy can gain in a simulacrum. It is the sentence, "If the ignition tank shows up, be sure to give blazing elites a wide berth, and if the unstable Tesla coil is added, cry." The Verdant Falls map is very interesting. Not only does it have a guaranteed spawn of either a scrapper or a large chest on top of the crashed ship, but for some reason it is the only map that cannot spawn a cloaked chest. Until recently, it also couldn't spawn any of the interactables added with the Survivors of the Void DLC, and there was a glitch where the guaranteed large chest would not change in price between stages, and would always be $50. This has since been fixed. In the game files, the artifact of frailty is funnily called Weak-Ass Knees, which is just hilarious. In the ending credits of the game, there is a drawn artifact code as one of the paintings that shows up on the sides. This code is not used for any existing artifacts, but there is a possibility that it will be used for one in the future. I wasn't really planning to add any important lore facts in this video, as I kinda think that they count as useful facts. An excellently made video by Manaxa was recently released that I think goes into the majority of the lore better than I ever could, which I'll link in the description, if I remember. However, there is one small lore misconception that people who don't really understand the game's lore seem to make. Despite the characters we play in Risk of Rain 2 specifically being called survivors, they are actually on the planet willingly. Most of them at least. In Risk of Rain 2, we do not play as the same characters in Risk of Rain 1. Instead, just a different person of the same occupation. In most cases, again, like with Commando, Huntress, etc. The only exceptions to this are Acred and maybe Artificer, though, as it is unlikely she is the same person, though she was frozen in time. Acred is the same person between games, though. Same dog. Not person, whatever. Anyways, a lot of people are under the misconception that all of the debris you see on the stages, mainly between Siphoned Forest, Verdant Falls, and Siren's Call, is from the ship that we see in the intro. And it was somehow destroyed, and that is why we are landing in the beginning from an escape pod. This is not true. The debris we see is much older than would make sense for a ship that just crashed, and the intro cutscene even tells us itself. The debris and subsequently the majority of the cargo you find is from the UES Contact Light, the ship that was destroyed in the first game, and the one that the survivors in the Risk of Rain 1 were saved from. We know that the ship we arrived in is completely fine, and assumedly still in orbit above the planet, because we are able to call various things down from it, such as Captain's Orbital Strike and beacons, and the remote caffeinator. The survivors we play in Risk of Rain 2 are searching for the non-existent survivors of the Contact Light. Anyways, I said I wasn't going to talk about this for too long, but I just thought that this was interesting. With the exception of Eclipse and the artifact of frailty, all survivors will not die from any amount of fall damage, no matter the source. Even if it is greater than your maximum health, the damage from falling will always leave you at 1 HP. However, if you are playing as Heretic, since she has negative health regeneration, you will instantly die from fall damage that leaves you at 1 HP, as the negative regeneration will kill you. This next fact is from JC Magna in the Discord. There are 4 items in the game that are references to the names of some of the developers. Paul's Goathoof is named after Paul Morse, Ben's Raincoat is named after Ben Schofield, Eulogy Zero is named after Nick Bizzo-Zero, and Gore's Tome is named after Jeffrey Gore Hunt, which is assumedly a nickname. There are likely more references in this game, but as for the items, these are the only ones named after developers/artists. This one is actually one that I found entirely on my own, and I'm honestly surprised the wiki doesn't have it. In the Tentabobbles logbook entry, there is a very subtle reference to the movie This is Spinal Tap. In the sentence, remember to never turn the dial up to 11. This may be a complete coincidence, but I'm going to go ahead and believe that this is intentional, and I am the first person to have found it. All mentions of this idea should be forwarded to my lawyer at gmail.com/ joking. But yes, this is the clip in question of what it's referencing, I believe at least.
It's very, very special because if you can see, the numbers all go to 11. Look, right across the board.
Put it up to 11.
11, exactly. One louder.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
This fact might be a little bit too useful, but because of how the stats change for the shipping request form, it becomes more likely for you to get an uncommon item than a common at 4 stacks, and is more likely for you to get a legendary item than an uncommon at 21 stacks. This also makes it so that the chance to get a common item will asymptotically get closer to 0, but it will never reach it. I don't know what this is, or where it shows up in the game, or if it shows up in the game, what the point of it is, or why it even exists at all. But on the Spotify playlist by Chris Christodoulou of the Seekers of the Storm OST, there is a 9-second song, if you can even call it that has so few listens that Spotify doesn't even show how many people have listened to it yet. It is called, in parentheses, The Song of Life, and just sounds like this. There is a second artist credited with the song named Padme Christodoulou, which, after listening to the song, I'm going to assume is his child. If this is the case, this is adorable. Chris is also not the only creator of the soundtrack to Risk of Rain 2. There are many other people who have helped or even made some of the songs on their own. Most of them have incredibly unique and complicated last names, which I will attempt and likely fail at pronouncing. They are Kostas Christodoulou on the song Om Mani Padme Hum Part 2. I don't know, why does he name these songs so weirdly? George Karianis on many of the Seekers of the Storm tracks, Stavros Markonis, who made the song I Should Build the Man a Statue, Calliope or Calliope, Mitropolo, and Christos Sogias Razakov on the song Once in a Lullaby, and Dimitris Sakas on the song The Face of the Deep. The entire original sad track was created by Chris alone, and he only started making music with other artists and his family after the Survivors of the Void DLC. The Power Elixir's logbook entry shows almost the most direct reference to a piece of media in the entire game, being this meme almost word for word.
Hello, potion seller. I am going into battle, and I want your strongest potions. My potions are too strong for you, traveler.
I kinda love doing research for this video, because I get to find things like this that were in the game and that I didn't know about, and it's just beautiful. There are 17 items, if you can even call them that do not have logbook entries. They are the fuel array, all of the elite aspects, and all of the untiered items. There are also a few items that you just cannot see at all. The monsoon and drizzle difficulty modifiers, for example, are actually items that you are spawned in holding, as it is the easiest way to change the player's stats. Other weird ones include the harnesses that the devoted Lemurians wear with the Artifact of Devotion, Railgunner's passive, and the equipment cooldown reduction that the equipment drones have. There are more that I didn't actually know about until now. Sockster from the Discord adds that Mithrix's adaptive armor and some of the visual effects, such as the translucent effects on ghost enemies, are also items that you cannot obtain or see. The bile that the Beetle Queen excretes towards its enemies has a terrifying pH value of 0.05, making it slightly less corrosive than battery acid and slightly more corrosive than sulfuric acid. This is vaguely realistic though, as there are things on Earth that go into the negatives in terms of their pH, such as carborane, which has a pH of -18. Every survivor in the logbook has a slight idle animation. Every survivor, except Railgunner. And Mul-T. Railgunner doesn't move at all, however the lights on her backpack still flicker and change colors. And Mul-T just does this when you first open his logbook entry. It's a bit strange, and I don't know what he's doing, but ultimately it's not that big of a deal. Another logbook oddity that I thought I'd throw in here is the Nukahana's Opinion, which is comically far away from the camera. By using the mod Start in Bazaar, you can see a secret lunar seer that didn't depict any map in it. Interacting with it doesn't put anything in the chat like the other lunar seers would, and is only shown as a question mark when you ping it. Interacting with the blue portal after using this seer just brings you back to the Bazaar Between Time. Doing this will, however, advance the stage level from 0 to 1, but that doesn't do anything. Void Fiend actually visibly shakes much more as his corruption meter fills up. He also shakes less as it empties. I think this is a really cool bit of attention to detail, and it makes him really feel a lot more tragic as a character. Bandit's lore implies that he isn't supposed to be here at all. He snuck onto the UAS safe travels in order to steal the chests that were going to be salvaged from the contact light. I hope he's happy with himself for where his crimes got him, because now he is effectively stranded on Petrichor 5. When picking up the spare drone parts item, there is a 10% chance for the drone you activate to have an arm with a handgun instead of a chain gun. This doesn't change anything about how it works, but it is adorable. Also, if you have the spare drone parts before Phase 4 of Mithrix begins, and you kill him without the first Colonel Drone Man dying, you will gain a second Colonel Drone Man. This is currently the only known way to do this. If you are playing as someone who cannot push both buttons in the Abandoned Aqueduct at the same time, and have either broken every pot or are just too lazy to push them, a silly way to push one of the buttons down is with the Forgive Me Please. For those of you who don't know, the FMP has a small chance to drop a lunar coin. Because the lunar coins have weight, you can push the buttons down like this. Is this incredibly slow and time consuming? Yeah, but if you're desperate for the bands, here's one way you can get them. The obelisk that you interact with in a moment fractured to obliterate is very similar to this obelisk on the Aphelion Sanctuary. I don't really know if there's any lore significance to this, I just thought it was interesting. Okay, this one's a long one, so strap in. There are currently 10 different portals in the game. I will list and describe all of them as well as telling you what they do. The blue portal can either appear randomly or will automatically appear after hitting a Newt Shrine and finishing the teleporter event. Interacting with it will bring you to the Bazaar Between Time. There is also a blue portal in the Bazaar Between Time that will let you leave to the next stage. The gold portal can either appear after hitting an altar of gold and finishing the teleporter event, or charging a Halcyon beacon for the second time. Interacting with it will bring you to the Golden Coast, in which you can fight the Aurelionite. The gold portal also appears after defeating her to let you leave the area. The Celestial portal will appear after finishing the teleporter fight and after reaching the third stage after looping. Interacting with it will bring you to a moment fractured, where you can either obliterate or go to a moment whole if you are carrying the Bleeds of Fealty. A Celestial portal will also show up in a moment fractured after hitting the obelisk once to let you leave if you don't want to obliterate. The artifact portal is the largest portal in the game and can be found after entering an artifact code at either of the terminals in Sky Meadows or Helminth Hatchery. Interacting with it will bring you to the Bulwark's Ambry, where you must complete a boss fight in order to get the artifact that you entered the code of. After doing this and collecting the artifact in the middle, another artifact portal will spawn somewhere in the area, which will allow you to leave. The Knurl portal can be found in the hidden cave below the Bazaar Between Time and will bring you to the Void Fields. After completing the Void Fields trial, another Knurl portal will spawn in the area to let you leave. Once you have visited the Void Fields, the Knurl portal will not appear again in the Bazaar. The Void portal also spawns after completing the Void Fields trial and will bring you to the Void Locus. The Void portal also has a 10% chance to spawn after a teleporter event after Stage 7. The Deep Void portal either appears after completing the Void Locus signals or after petting the frog in commencement 10 times after beating Mithrix. This portal will bring you to the planetarium, where you can fight the Voidling. After defeating the Voidling, another Deep Void portal will appear, and interacting with this one will end your game. The Infinite portal is a portal exclusive to the Simulacrum game mode, and appears after 10 waves have been completed to bring you to a new area. The Green portal will appear after completing a Halcyon beacon for the first time, after completing the teleporter event on any of the maps on the Path of the Colossus, or after defeating the Aurelionite in the Golden Coast. Interacting with it will bring you to the next stage in the order of stages in the Path of the Colossus. And the last portal is the Destination portal. Currently, the only place this exists is after you beat the False Sun boss fight, and interacting with it will simply bring you to the Helmut Hatchery. If you think that this was too useful or too long, sue me, I don't care. Rex is actually two different entities that are working together to survive. He is both a robot and a plant that are working together, as neither of them could survive on their own. Currently, there are only two ways that you can be under the effect of the exposed status, and they are by playing with the Artifact of Vengeance and being attacked by the enemy clone, or by playing with the Artifact of Chaos in multiplayer. For those of you who don't know, the exposed status effect is only found from Mercenary. If you are playing as Heretic, and you have a Halcyon Seed, when you enter Stage 4 of the Mithrix fight, he has a special line of dialogue. It is, "The Heretic? The Guardian? How? Who pulls your strings, Furman?" While you can physically do more damage than this, the highest damage number that can be shown, with the damage numbers shown in the settings, is 990 million, which will be shown as 990M. There is a cut item in the game files that is seemingly an unfinished version of the Wicked Ring of the first game. It is called Cooldown on Crit, and would reduce your skill cooldowns by 1 second after every time you got a critical hit. As far as I'm aware, this doesn't show up anywhere in the game, but we can only hope that it will be added in the future. There are many other deleted items, I just arbitrarily decided to talk about this one in particular. There are, however, a set of cut items that I do want to talk about, because it's a total shame that they were never added. They are the suppressed scraps, that were all supposedly a part of a void version of the scrapper. Putting an item into this scrapper would make it so that every time you picked up that item later in the run, it would be converted into this type of scrap. I think this should be added, as it allows the player to actively combat the item bloat in the game, and would also help you avoid getting items that you don't really want. Okay, I swear I won't talk about cut items anymore, but one more that I found to be really interesting is in the case of the lunar wings. They do not have any stats or a description, however they do have a short lore entry. It is, quote, "a relic from an ancient avian race. It is said that they gave up on the gift of flight in order to establish new agricultural civilizations, bolstering their strength and numbers to withstand the ever-changing climate of their dying planet." Comment down below what you think this item would have done. Bonus points if you relate it to its lore entry. The only item that will not appear in the 3D printer is the regenerating scrap, for obvious reasons. Other than that, the only items that will never appear in a printer due to other reasons are void, equipment, and lunar equipment items. Lunars can spawn in a 3D printer if you are holding a Eulogy 0. This next fact comes from local pixel artist in the Discord server. The logbook item with the earliest estimated delivery is either the runic lens on June 28th of 2027, or the war bonds, which has an undefined date in 2027, meaning it could be earlier than June. The latest estimated delivery is for the Tentelbauble, which has a date of March 3rd of 2076. These dates imply that the cargo delivery missions of the Contact Light and UES Safe Travels combined would take 49 years to complete. However, clearly that is going to be delayed a bit, and a lot of unhappy customers will be made with all of the undelivered packages. The Siren's Call map is the only non-hidden realm map in the game that a Shrine of Chance cannot spawn on. And finally, the obligatory, truly silly, and useless fact of the video to wrap us up is the letters S, A, L, E, S, T, A, and R show up in the Sailstars logbook entry a collective 365 times. One for each day of the year, I guess. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this behemoth of a video. This ended up being a much larger undertaking than I thought it would be. I hope you enjoy it, because if you didn't, these dozens of hours of work that I put into the video will have been wasted. But if you watched it all the way through, I think it's safe to say that you did enjoy it. I have hidden one of my Socks Needs Help emotes somewhere in this video. The first person to leave a comment with the timestamp and a description of its appearance will have their comment pinned. Let me tell you though, I really put effort into this one. It's hard to find. Anyways, thank you so much to our members for allowing me to make content like this, and thank you for 6,000 subscribers. This was originally going to be a 5,000 subscriber special, but it just wasn't, because you guys were so fast with it, so thanks for 6,000 instead. And thanks again for watching. Bye-bye.